Welcome to this video for round 12 of the Candidates Tournament in London. A long tournament. It's going to last only 3 rounds, including the round I'm talking about now. So every point now counts double in a way. Everything's important now. There's less time to correct mistakes, and we had the round that was by far the most dramatic, also because it's near the end of the tournament. We had the most dramatic round today, or yesterday. It really wasn't possible for me to do the video right after the round. It lasted till about 10 in the evening German time, and it was impossible simply to do an analysis of the games and make a video. I would have sat there till, I don't know, 3 in the morning, and this also doesn't help the quality of the video, really, if you do it in a complete tired state of mind. In the games, you will see what happens if you play chess in a tired state of mind, because I think right now the players are really exhausted. It's been a long tournament. Okay, let's go to the games. I'll start with the 2 less interesting games, and I'll do them quickly, otherwise those video would easily cross the 2-hour mark, and I won't do that. So let's go. Gelfand against Swidler. This is basically a game which doesn't have any big relevance for the for both players, so to say. Those games might be relevant for tiebreak purposes, but otherwise it's really mostly for the honor and for some dollars at the end. Okay, so let's see what happens. We've got an anti-Grunfeld, Gelfand with knight f3 c4, which means white has delayed this d2 d4 move, and we have a kind of a Grunfeld, but not quite. The difference is, for example, in this kind of position where the knight is hanging, that black cannot take here because of queen c3. This is very embarrassing. I had this in countless blitz games, really. And black needs to do very ugly moves now, rook g8 or f6, to simply avoid losing the rook. Okay, Swidler of course didn't do that. He retreated to b6, and now white plays d4. So we have a position which is very Grunfeldish, but not quite. Okay, so Swidler plays bishop e6, attacking the queen. It needs to retreat, and now he played bishop to g4, correcting this somewhat awkward position of the bishop. And yeah, it's quite funny. Gelfand now plays queen e4, moving the queen again. You're not supposed to move the queen that often, but here white gets away with it. He attacks those 2 pieces, the b7 pawn and the g4 bishop, and black simply gets rid of it and plays c6. So we have a similar position to lots of lines in the Slav defense, Queen's Gambit Slav, where d and c pawn are exchanged. Black's got c6 played and has fianchettoed. This happens quite often in some Slav lines, and we continue. Yeah, Swidler now plays e5. It's sort of a preemptive strike. He doesn't want to castle, because white then might play h4, which is quite funny, because it's similar to the game Swidler-Gelfand from the first turn of this tournament, where there was a similar position, only Swidler had the pawn on f4, which prevented e5s, and he had a great position and should have won this game, actually. Yeah, well, okay, he didn't wanted to see that, this h4 thing, so he played e5 beforehand to break in the center, and now yeah, it's quite funny. He moves the queen again. Yeah, the queen is not good on f3. It's not doing anything great there. So white invests those 2 moves here with the queen to reposition it. And despite all the queen moves, it looks like quite a normal position. Yeah, how to assess this? This kind of position usually drifts between a very slight advantage for white due to the 2 bishops and equality, because black is of course really solid. I mean, he's got no pawn weakness and no particularly bad piece. In the game, there's actually not happening much. This is why I'm doing those moves quickly. White managed to get a slight pull on the queen side, and in fact he had some chances to really maintain to really get an advantage. I'll point this out at exact this position here. It seems that Swidler's move Rook A1 wasn't good. He could have played almost any other move that doesn't blunder something. This in fact here would have allowed the move B5, which Gelfand didn't play. B5 was strong. His move wasn't bad, but this was strong. The idea is, okay, simply attack the pawn, and if black plays C5, there's bishop A5, threatening to take it, and then take C5. And this is a bit awkward. If the knight moves now, there's bishop H3 coming, and both bishops now have active positions. It seems that it's difficult for black here to maintain material equality. Very often he gets in real trouble. But this is also due to tactical motifs that are very difficult to foresee for a human, especially something like this B6, there's queen D3, and this is really strong. This knight doesn't have a good square to go. Let's say it would move here, yeah, just for argument's sake. You take here and see it has got this attack, and white now will win a pawn. Like this. This is especially awful. Would win for white instantly. Or queen f6, as this is hanging. But then there are lines like this, which are also tricky for black. There are chances to hold it, but it's not good really. B5 would have been very good for white, and in fact a couple of moves later Gelfand could have played b5 again, but he didn't. Exactly in this position there was again b5. Here it is based on some tactical ideas. If black takes it, then there's queen a5 attacking the pawn, and as the queen is, oops, now that was not intended, is somewhat tied to the e4 knight, he cannot keep the pawn. So let's say here, and back. And this is a problem. The b7 pawn is a constant weakness that white can pressurize. This also should be quite good for white. He's also got the two bishops, of course. In the game, however, Swidler managed to sort of block the whole center. The knights are now cemented by the pawns, and it's still somewhat better for white, but there was no way to break through, and after a couple of more moves in this position they agreed to a draw. Yeah, Gelfand probably let something slip here, but well, as mentioned, we're in round 12. It's been a long tournament, and this is also the third game of this 3-game pack that they always have. 3 games, 1 rest day, 3 games, 1 rest day. So I think in comparison, the first day after the rest day is better in terms of mental freshness, and then after 3 games you're really done. Okay, so this was a draw. Let's look at Rajabov Ivanchuk, and to be honest, I did some analysis on the game, but I'm not completely sure what happened. It's just like that. I'll be honest with you. Let's go through this. I mean, I understand a couple of things about this game, but I'm not entirely sure about some other points, though. So this was too quick. We got a Nimzo, the classical Nimzo with queen c2. Bishop played d5. Takes, bishop g5. This has been played hundreds of times. h6, and now by far the most popular move is bishop h4, which is much sharper than the capture. After this, there are numerous lines that black can play. it very often goes along these lines. It is very, very sharp, obviously. Black often plays moves like these, and yeah, it's a purely tactical battle, which very much depends also on your home preparation. How much do you know about these lines? Where are your ideas, which have been checked with the computer? So Rajabov didn't want that. He just took, probably, if you consider his tournament, he wanted a simple position. So we got this, and here black also can play the simple move c6 and play a sort of Queen's Gambit exchange structure where some pieces have been exchanged. This helps black, and it should be about equal. There is, however, another way to play, and this is how Ivanchuk goes about it. He simply sacrifices the pawn, or at least he offers the pawn, but Rajabov didn't take it. White now and in the coming moves can take it, but it's not much. This, in fact, is really good for black. What I was getting at, that even here he sacrifices the pawn, and here the issue is also rook c8 with the idea of going to c2. Black has got excellent compensation for the pawn, so white basically never takes it. Knight f3, knight d7. It's again queen c7 leads to big compensation, so white just develops. And now rook c8. This is black's idea with this setup. He didn't want to play c6, but he wants to prepare c5, immediately attacking the center. So castles, c5. And yeah, this is the theoretical antidote against this white setup, with capturing on f6 with the assessment of equal play, which is probably a fair assessment. Black shouldn't have any big problems here. Played b3, and now we get to an isolated queen's pawn position, where, however, as we see, black's got pretty active pieces. He got this knight on c3, which now attacks e2, so this hanging bishop is not much of a problem. White covered. Bishop g4. Yeah, and to be honest, in this position, it's pretty clear that black shouldn't have any problems. But in fact, he got into some trouble later. I'm not so sure at which point exactly he went wrong. White now played this. The thing is that this knight looks like an active piece that irritates white, but the way it was played, it became a liability. I'm really not sure where black went wrong. I mean, probably he had some good alternatives, but even with the computer, with a brief analysis, I couldn't really make out. I couldn't really find make out's the wrong word. I couldn't really find where the problem was. Look at this knight. It looks good, but it cannot retreat anymore. And the way that it turned out, this endgame was better for white, simply because the knight has no way to retreat. Let's have a look and put a couple of more moves on the board. The knight has no way to get out of c3. Yeah, look at this. This knight is in a way trapped. Black covers it now, of course. And this is, of course, a bit problematic for black. You always need to cover the knight. You're tied to this piece, and yeah, what are you doing? It's really tricky, and certainly this wasn't forced. I think somehow Ivanchuk stumbled into this, and now was trying to hold the position. It's really difficult. So there was Rajabov was mostly trying to just make move 40. They both were down on time. And here on move 40, Ivanchuk amazingly makes a really committal move. It didn't seem necessary. He could also play rook c5 again or something, but he played h5. And this is probably a mistake. I don't really like the move. He could have, as mentioned, just play a nothing move, like, I don't know, rook c5 or something. And it seems better for white, of course. As mentioned, it's annoying to always have to watch after this knight, look after this knight, but probably you need to do that. After h5, there was the move h4, and this is now a bit tricky. White now gets squares for the rook, like this. And now it gets really critical for black. Probably around here the position should be losing for black, but it's not so clear cut how. I mean, look at this here. White has chances to win the pawn, and there's also targets to attack. There are also targets to attack. So it looks excellent for white, but in fact, the way it proceeded, to repeat, it's a position. The idea is d4. Yeah, look at this. If you know a little bit about theoretical endgames, rook endgames, then you know that f and h pawn is quite a notorious endgame, which is in fact very often drawn. And in this position here, rook b5, Grishook knows his endgames, and he simply abandons the b pawn and activates the rook. This is why knowing theoretical endgames is really useful. Of course, it's also a general thing that you shouldn't play passively in endgames, especially not in rook endgames. But okay, Grishook knew that rook a1 here, this endgame is a draw for black. And this can be checked with endgame table basis. If you feel like trying this, to analyze this a bit, I can put a link in the description to an online endgame table database. There you can enter this exact position and try around a bit why it is a draw. I won't go into a detailed analysis here. The main way to go about it is as Grishook is showing in the game. He uses his rook to give checks here and blocks the f-pawn with the king. And it's really impossible for white to make any substantial progress. Yeah, let's see how it continued. He simply harasses white's king as soon as it tries to make any progress. Yeah, white cannot do much really. And here, okay, you just check and return to the h-pawn. Okay, this is last try, but you can always just play these harassing moves. Yeah, and now in this position, Rajabov plays h6. Recognizing that he cannot win this position, and he just played this for a little joke. Grishook just took on h6, rook a6 check, king f5, rook takes h6, stalemate. Quite a funny motif at the end with the stalemate trick. It's really a draw, this endgame, and I'm quite sure that white missed something, but I couldn't find it really. In those endgames, for example, computer is completely useless without a table base. I mean, if you give this to a somewhat weaker engine like Stockfish, which is not completely terrible, it simply gives white a really big winning advantage, and this is of course nonsense. So it's difficult to analyze those rook endgames with a limited amount of time, as you need to really think for yourself and not briefly. You need to invest time. Computers are of limited value. and I couldn't find it. I mean, how white should win this position. I think there should be some way, but I didn't see it. Okay, so now let's go to the two important games for the general standing. Okay, which I'm doing, okay. Yeah, let's go with Carlsen, Ivanchuk. I don't know. Both games were really something. Okay, Carlsen opens 1e4. And we get a Sicilian, where he now plays knight c3. He played bishop b5 with success against Gelfand just 2 rounds before this. But okay, some variety is certainly not bad. Black's now got a big choice. Ivanchuk played e6, which mostly leads to a transposition to open Sicilian lines. Magnus also played d4. And now with queen c7 we got a Taimanov variation. Yeah, white's nowadays principal setup is with bishop e3. There are also setups with f4 now, but Carlsen just played the standard moves here for the English attack with bishop e3 and long castles. Bishop b4. This is to use the pin and put some pressure on the center. It's actually important to note that it is bad for black to play something like d6 here. This really leads to a bad version of the English attack after g4, h4, as queen c7 has been played too early. Okay, bishop b4, f3, knight e7. This looks a bit weird, but it has got ideas. It simply attacks, or let's say attacks the wrong word, it increases the pressure on c3. And in fact, I remember that I recently had this in a blitz game and I didn't really know how to proceed. Yeah, and here Carlsen played knight b3. I had to look this up, of course. I don't know anything about this line, and this seems to be a rare move. It only has been played like a dozen of times, whereas knight d2 e2 is by far the main move, and this also netted white some good results in the past. He just covers c3 so that the pawn structure is not damaged. And one important point is that after d5, white has various ideas. He can play e5, which is interesting, as the capture is more than risky. Probably just bad. Similar to the game, actually. Or white can play moves like, let's say, this, leading to entirely different structures with the capture on f6. Well, he went knight b3, and now Ivanchuk played d5. This is also one point of the knight e7 move. Yeah, if white would capture now, this is simply terrible. Just run into this very awkward pin. So e5 is the idea. And now black cannot capture, simply. This simply wins for white. The queen has got no squares. No, or you need to sacrifice some piece here with no compensation at all. So knight retreats, f4, and now Ivanchuk plays a good move. I think he played b6. It's not so obvious, this move, but it has a really good idea. Knight c5 to e4, immediately activating the knight. We have now a kind of a French structure, but this concrete idea, knight c5 to e4, is a real problem for white. And Carlsen immediately seems to make a mistake. He said this also in the press conference, that this move probably was bad. He didn't offer an alternative, what he should play, actually. What I looked at was queen e1. I liked this idea. The idea is to introduce those kind of ideas, attacking the bishop. If you play this move, it's not a check, the capture on d2, and you prepare maybe just bishop d2 covering this. So to illustrate, if black now castles, for example, white could go here and make sure that he doesn't get this rack pawn structure. It doesn't look attractive, don't get me wrong, but maybe this is an idea. I'm not sure what Carlsen had in mind, what's better than bishop d4. Here, of course, black can also take, similar to the game. We have the same pawn structure then, but here white at least has got 2 bishops. In the game there was, as mentioned, bishop d4, and after knight c5, it's not possible to prevent this anymore. Carlsen played a3, knight e4, attacking the queen. Needs to move. And now we by force get this position. And okay, this looks like a really terrible structure. White's got weak pawns and weak squares. And what exactly is the compensation? To be honest, there isn't much. I think black is just slightly better here. But Ivanchuk played a somewhat strange move that Carlsen also criticized in the press conference. Played a5, weakening squares. Of course, he wants to get rid of the bishop. This is a valid idea with bishop a6. But still, it doesn't seem really necessary. A good move, I think, here is rook a7, which was also suggested by the commentators in London. The idea is to quickly get the rook here and later decide what to do about the pawns. Sometimes even b5 is a real option, simply to nail down those weaknesses. The bishop is bad on d7, but it can quite often be activated with bishop d7, f6, bishop e8 and things like this. This looks like black is just slightly better. One point is that c4 fails due to rook c7. Now this is hanging, and after this black gets nicely activated with bishop b7 coming. So rook c7 I think was better. After a5, as Ivanchuk played, I think it's again about equal. So let's continue. This also really weakens b6, yeah, this a5 move. So this is how it continued. Rook b8. So here's another interesting point. White now could play various things that probably are very drawish. I mean, I think what Carlsen tried to do is to somehow keep the game going and trying to, I don't know, maybe induce some error by Ivanchuk, but this error simply didn't materialize. He played knight b5. I think here there are various other ideas to just keep the game simple and in the drawing range. He really shouldn't lose this position with normal moves. Okay, he played this, and now Ivanchuk played g5. A good move. He played a good game here. g5 is a rather typical way to attack this pawn chain, known from the French defense, and it also activates pieces. So g3, white of course couldn't take it. It's even with a check on e5. So g3 takes. He didn't. Sorry, he played. he played rook to g8 first. Sorry. Yeah, the thing is, black now has ideas to activate the rook. It's nothing terrible for white yet, but he didn't need to allow that. He could even play h4 before to prevent g5. Okay, c4. This was Carlsen's idea, and I think it's not wrong actually. What he tried here. Black took, and here it is interesting. With c4, for example, he sort of tried to seduce black to play this move. But I think it isn't really good. Black maybe can play it, but it's risky. The idea was king e4, and now white has got some serious chances against the king with rook d1, knight d6, and so on. In fact, I did some analysis on this, and it seems to be very often a draw at the end, like rook g2, check. Let's say king e7, rook d6. So white has got lots of activity for the pawn. Of course, there are pawns hanging, but the activity is really more than enough to compensate. Black needs to be cautious here to not get into serious trouble. This is also, I think, why Ivanchuk simply went knight to e7. This is just the better move. It doesn't really enter the complications and keeps a good normal position. Yeah, rook g1. Took on c4, knight d5. And now knight to d6. So this structure, in fact, favors black slightly, because he's got, if you look at this, he's got the 3 pawn islands against 1, 2, 3, 4 islands. So the black structure is slightly better. However, white is quite active with the pieces. That's quite close to having everything painted red. So white has got activity with the pieces, and it's probably still around, it's still within the drawing margin. White shouldn't lose. Well, what he did here was slightly risky. He sort of gambled that black would take on c4 with good chances, but after Ivanchuk declined this offer, so to say, he needs to be cautious here. Let's look how it continued. He took on f7. Black captured on f4. Yeah, they were both down on time, but not in big time trouble. In fact, I think the next couple of moves are relatively easy to understand. Black activated the king, and white tried to get rid of the king. So here black is active with the pieces, and e5 is a weakness. So this is slightly better for black, but white still has got chances, of course, to hold. They repeat it, and we're close to another critical position. Exactly here. Here Carlsen did something really surprising for the commentators, and I didn't actually see this position. I only heard, because I was busy cooking, I only heard that they were surprised about this, and only later I saw the concrete position. The thing is, here Magnus played rook e4, which protects the e5 pawn, but it somehow feels really passive. What he could have done, and what I think probably would have saved the draw relatively easy, if you look at it, but it's not easy to see in the game probably, is rook c8, just keeping the rook active and starting a counter attack. In fact, the point is, if you look at this, if black takes now, what he probably should do, how else to make any progress, then white plays knight e4, and this means he is really going for a mating attack. Let's look. Knight d6. Of course, this is really easy. Checkmate. So queen here, king here. And now we see that there are a couple of mating ideas in this position. Let's say rook c4 would be checkmate, but there's a knight on e5. And there are also mates with the knight. Let's say knight magically to c3, and you cannot capture it. Then there's also mate. The king on the rim of the board offers some chances. So rook f8, threatening rook to f4. And what is black supposed to do now? If he goes for the rook exchange, then white can exchange actually. And now play the move c4. This is very cute. Controlling b5 and setting the king into a mating net. Now a check, knight c3 check, or knight takes b6 check would be made. And this actually is a forced draw now, as black has no way to improve the position and prevent the mates. If you try to somehow improve, let's say, you try to hunt the h-pawn, yeah, just for argument's sake, then this is mate next move. So black cannot make any progress. He just needs to stay close to the king. So this, for example, is a typical draw. So let's back up a couple of moves. This was rook f3. Black can also play this move to prevent the mate. Check. b4 takes, and now rook f8, again threatening checkmate with rook a8. Rook b8, and yeah, and let's say it continues. It's not easy to get this to a complete end, to a conclusion, this line. But you see that White's pieces are very active, and he's got very good chances to simply exchange those two pawns against one another and then eliminate Black's pawns to get rook and knight against rook. This is the drawn endgame that White needs to go for. I think this is very, very drawish. I mean, just a possible continuation. Rook e2, king b3. Yeah, rook takes probably. No, there's rook b5. Sorry, Black needs to play the king first. Rook here, here, and now let's say a knight move to try this. This is just a draw, not much to play for even. So here rook c8 was much stronger, but he played rook e4. I don't know. Simply this wasn't yeah, Magnus Day, so to say. This was rook c8 is relatively easy. I mean, I don't know what he did there. So rook f5, Black attacks the pawn. It's difficult to keep it anyway. So this makes the rook e4 choice even stranger. So after a couple of more moves, the pawn got lost anyway. Yeah? This is additional issue. Yeah, by now Black has coordinated nicely, got the knight to d6, which controls good squares. He's still got a good structure and an extra pawn. So this position is very close to winning for Black. And Ivanchuk did a good technical job at first, but then allowed some play. This I think is very, very well played. And here I think he missed something. Played e5, and this allows again lots of counterplay. Or counterplay is the wrong word. It allows White to stay in the game. I think here h4 was stronger. After which White really struggles to make a move. It's very difficult. If White decides to take, just for argument's sake, there's this rook h3, and something like this is just dead. You get the a pawn. The c pawn is still weak, so this is resignable really. h4 would have been very strong, but he played e5. After which Magnus now got the chance to play h4, which he did. And this nails down the h-pawn as a potential weakness. And it's not so easy now to make progress as Black. He tried king d6, walking over with the king, but there's the rook again, going for counterplay. There's b6 as a target. Of course, Ivanchuk plays for a win. He could have played king e6 with the draw, but no use. You want to win the game now with Black. So this happened, and here c5, rook takes a4. So the c pawn is the glimmer of hope, and here in fact comes the final crucial moment of the game. Carlsen now played rook h6, and this simply overlooks Ivanchuk's reply. What he could have done is to play c6, and in fact this seems to draw the game. It's funny, huh? Two pawns down, but it seems to draw. what is black supposed to do? The c-pawn is very quick. If you try to play something like this, with this idea here, there's king b2, and you cannot go here. I mean, you can, but it's it's too late. Now the pawn promotes. Of course, on c6, not this, on c6, the reply is king e6, very, very obvious. But now, in fact, white has this move, preparing to support the c-pawn. On king d6 now, there's the funny tactic rook takes e5. This is what this is what you needed to see beforehand. The idea, of course, is that this promotes the pawn. And that's not the whole story. Black can play h4, of course, using the h-pawn. Rook h5, king c6, and now just a move. I don't know, let's say this move. And in fact, we get again, just like in the Grishuk game, with black against Rajabov, a rook endgame with 2 pawns down for white in this case. And in fact, again, it's a draw. I can also encourage you to enter this into a table base. The link is in the description, and play around a bit why this is a draw. In fact, the thing is that quite often it is a draw against those 2 flank pawns, a pawn and h pawn. It's simply very difficult to make any sort of progress as black. How do you make any progress here? If the rook actually cannot move even, it would immediately drop one of the pawns. So let's say black comes over with the king, then you attack here. And what is black supposed to do? You lose one of the pawns. It's simply unavoidable. I don't want to go through various lines here. You can really check it out if you're interested in this table base yourself, and try around a bit. But here there's even the concrete problem that one of the pawns are likely to drop. Okay, so it didn't happen. He played rook to h6, and in fact this is a big mistake. Now Ivanchuk played quickly king e4, and this is now not tenable for white. He will lose this now. So why is this lost now? The problem is that black intends king d5 and capturing the c-pawn, and then he will have a pawn and e pawn, and this is a big difference to the 2 flank pawns. Or alternatively, you can get to e pawn and h pawn. This is what happened in the game. Played rook d6 now, rook d4, and he got the c pawn now. So black's got 2 extra pawns, just like before. It's 2 extra pawns, but they are two files apart. This is not h pawn and f pawn, but with those 2 pawns it's actually a win. We see now how it is done. Black gets the rook behind the pawn, very important of course. And at first you think, okay, how does black make any progress? But the problem is, here you're in kind of a Zugzwang. You need to give away now for the h pawn or the king. You move the king. King advances, and now black goes back to the e pawn. How is the winning plan now? The thing is, black pushes the h pawn and uses this to distract the white king. King now needs to approach the pawn, and he simply queened it to get to this position with a tempo on the rook. Very important. Rook moved and rook g8, and now it's gone. The rook prevents the white king from helping, and this is the classical position that it's easily winning for black. And now here Carlsen resigned. I hope you all know the winning procedure. As mentioned before, I can point you to this table base where you can play this through, but I can also simply show it. This is the classical building of a bridge, or the Lucina position, where at the end black needs to put the rook on the 5th rank. Can do various things here. Let's say the rook goes back here, and I just put a couple of moves on the board. So how is black winning now? I just show the general idea. There are sometimes other ideas to win, but this is the main thing, putting the rook on the 5th rank. And now, if you look at this, get all those checks. You can block the check on the 5th rank and finally promote. This is this typical building of a bridge. So could easily have crossed the 100 move mark. So what does this mean? Carlsen just lost the game, the first game for quite a couple of months, and also the first, of course, then in the tournament. Against Ivanchuk, who didn't really seem to be in good shape. And well, Ivanchuk played a good game, but mostly Magnus played a bad game. He was really shattered at the press conference. You rarely see him show any kind of emotion, but he was really, I don't know, let's say pissed off about his performance. He called it disgraceful, and I really understand what he means. I mean, he got this bit of a crappy position out of the opening here with the bad structure, and then struggled on and on. Then he got some chances to draw. I think one was here with rook c8 instead of rook e4. And then even after this, Ivanchuk played some inaccurate moves and allowed this draw here with c6. And he didn't see that as well. He played rook h6. So he really gave away half a point in a way. It's not an undeserved win or something. Not saying something like this, but he had chances to save the game, and he didn't take them. Of course, he was worse before in this tournament, so it maybe it was bound to happen at some time. But of course, at a very unlucky moment near the end of the tournament. So, one game open, the game of this round, Aronian against Kramnik, where Aronian really had a very easy to understand task, just win it. Everything else is pointless. Okay, played d4, no crazy things. And Kramnik went for the semi-Tarrasch, which was no big surprise. He had played along these lines in the first round against Swidler. There he had this on the board, which can lead to the semi-Tarrasch. After knight f3, black basically has no other move than c5. And then we have the same position as in the game. So c5 takes, and now Aronian played e3, which is maybe slightly surprising, as e4 is the main continuation. But it also means, this e4 move, that two sets of minor pieces get exchanged, and it always entails a bit of risk of simplification, this kind of line. When you really need to win it, you want to keep more pieces on the board maybe and get a complicated longer middle game. So he played e3, which typically leads to the isolated queen's pawn. So it's always normal. a3 is also a normal move. He played it here to go for an interesting idea. White simply here in this position could have castled, and then we have a classical isolated pawn position, which is played hundreds of times. Black can play, let's say, bishop f6 or knight back to f6, all kinds of moves. But Aronian had a different idea. He played a quick queen c2, which is interesting. It attacks h7, and somehow forces black to show his hand. How do you want to cover your pawns? He first captured, as now bishop h7 is really nonsense. This kind of continuation is bad for white. The bishop is cut off. It can be sacrificed, but a line like this is really pointless for white. Black's got quick rook g6. He doesn't have any attack to fear, and he's got lots of well-positioned pieces. Just recaptures normal. So now, what is Kramnik doing here? Very interesting. What does he play? He can play g6, h6, knight f6. These are the three moves that you consider. Knight f6, in fact, after bishop e3, would lead to a very common position that can easily arise from various openings. The Caro-Kann, even the c3 Sicilian. And it's a pretty typical isolated queen pawn position. g6 was possible, but maybe you don't want to weaken. h6 has one drawback, and this is this idea. Maybe not instantly. White probably castles first and plays, I don't know, rook d1 or something, but in general this battery here is a bit problematic, as you cannot go g6 after h6, because you then give away h6. So I don't know, they all have some drawbacks. And what is Kramnik playing? He played, after some thought, the move f5, and this is really interesting. f5 is very uncommon in these positions, and it really looks a bit anti-positional, as Kramnik himself stated in the press conference, because it weakens e5, it weakens e6. But what are the positive things about this move? There are positive things. In fact, I quite like it after looking at it a little bit deeper. Yeah, it controls the important square on e4. White cannot put anything on e4. You don't get any attack as white anymore on h7 or something. It is simply blocked by the pawn. And also black has got this idea of a quick bishop f6 attacking the pawn. So you intensify the direct pressure on the weakness. So this is in fact an interesting idea. I think maybe Kramnik has come up with this idea while analyzing similar positions with the computer. The fact is that lots of computers like to play f5 in those positions, and while it looks ugly, it's not easy at all to refute it in some way. In fact, my mobile phone very often plays f5 against me in isolated queen pawn positions. Not exactly this position, but similar positions. And I'm always shocked, like, what is this? And then I noticed that it's really difficult to get anything concrete. And in fact, Aronian had big trouble to get anything here. He castled, bishop f6. And now he decided to take on d5. It's difficult to proceed in some other fashion. d4 is simply a weakness. So now, bishop e3, d4 was hanging. This was a problem. For example, if white would try bishop c4, then there's simply knight takes d4. This is why he played bishop e3. He prepares this move. And Kramnik, in very direct fashion, played b5. Controlling the c4 square. Yeah. So how is Aronian supposed to react to this? He always needs to watch out for d4. It is attacked, yeah. He played queen to e2, which is probably right, attacking b5. And one important point now is if black plays the normal looking a6 move, white has got bishop to b1. Transferring this piece to the a2 point here, the a2 square, where it really puts some pressure on this slightly weak pawn on e6. And this is not something I think that black wants to see. He played bishop to b7, and this is better than a6, no doubt about it. The big question is now, what is white supposed to do? The easiest thing here to do is to capture on b5. He didn't do that. Let's look at this. Bishop takes b5. of course, a move he considered. The problem, however, is black plays f4. Just tactical play. And now, if white takes on f4, there's knight takes d4 and white can resign. You cannot capture, of course. This is a mate. And the queen is also attacked. So, queen move. And after this, black is just a piece up for nothing. So f4 is basically forcing white to play bishop c4. There is no other move. Attacking the queen, and the queen now goes to e4, setting up this kind of pin here. After this, we have a draw. And as Kramnik had stated before the game in the press conference of the previous round, that the draw would suit him fine, understandably. I mean, why not? He would certainly have no complaints about the draw. But of course, Aronian needed to win the game, so he couldn't go for that, and he needed to look for something else. In fact, here he played rook c1, intending probably something like this. He had some alternative, which was interesting. This is a4. Maybe this is the move he should have played to try to play for a win. It leads to really unclear positions. A big advantage is if this pawn moves, then you actually have this bishop c4 idea. It's not clear that this nets white an advantage or something, but this is probably what you should have done in terms of playing for something besides the draw. Let's say a possible continuation. There's more than one plausible way to play. You can play f4, for example, but let's say b4, just for argument's sake. If now white goes bishop c4, black retreats. He still has got pressure here, and has got various ideas. Knight e7, d5, e7, d5, or other ideas, moving the knight to some other place and bishop d5. It's unclear, yeah, it's really an unclear position. Probably Aronian should have gone for that. Black doesn't need to play b4 though, he can even consider a tactical move like f4. This is in fact quite interesting. Let's say a takes b5, takes here, here. Something like this leaves black with being a pawn down, but oh, it's not even a pawn down. But it's hard to cover this. I somehow wrote down he's a pawn. He lost the pawn. Probably he will lose e6, but he's got two very strong bishops. Well, to cut things short, probably a4 was the way to go in terms of continuing the game. He played rook c1, now a6. Rook d1. The thing is, well, there's lots of pressure here. Rook d1, and now f4. This was clear. And what's white supposed to do now after f4? It's really tricky. Something like bishop f4 doesn't really help. You can go knight d4, and it's sorry. Sorry, I forgot a move. Sorry. Of course, white plays rook c5 first. I forgot about this. Of course, now this is completely useless because of knight d4. There's still this mate threat going on. He played rook c5 first. Sorry, queen back, and now the question is how to continue. If white now takes, this is something you could consider. Queen takes, queen e6 check, king in the corner, and then after this, black can take on on d4 and has an extra exchange. This is probably a relatively straightforward win. Yeah, probably. I mean, black is clearly better and will probably win. This didn't help. He could consider bishop d2 maybe. Knight d4. Knight d4, queen c5. It also is problematic. Something like this, for example, is very tricky for white with a super annoying pin along the d file. This is probably also winning for black. It already was tricky here. He played queen c2, which probably was a good practical decision because it clearly leads to ultra complicated play. Yeah, Kramnik now grabbed the piece. What else? Just take it. Bishop h7, king h8, and white recaptured. So white's got 2 pawns for the piece and has got this this thing going against the king. In fact, in this position here, I think Kramnik could have almost won the game with rook c8, intending knight takes d4. And this really, it seems to win, but due to tactics that are almost impossible to see for a human, I think. The big point is, of course, this threat somehow provokes a queen move. What else is white supposed to do? Let's say he goes here, and this is the big issue. This move here is winning, but it's really I think close to impossible for a human to see. The point is the following: white takes, rook takes, and now the move queen f4 leads to a big advantage for black. And the point is, amazingly, that yeah, I'm threatening to take on f3. White covers this. There's bishop f3, g takes f, and now the really stunning move g6. The point is bishop g6, rook g8 is a little deadly pin. You will lose the bishop. And what about queen takes? Oops, this check, and the king doesn't have a good place to go. Yeah, and something like this is winning for black. I mean, it's impossible for a human to see. The computer just gives here -7 or something, but how do you calculate this in a game of chess? It's not possible. We're 8 moves deep, and you can also easily lose it with black if you miscalculate something. Kramnik played knight e7. This was at least possible to understand in a way, but it would have allowed Aronian to get an advantage probably. He played now e4, which is a big mistake, actually. Rook h5 is the normal looking move, actually, and it's good. It's a good move. Black now needs to be really cautious, and probably he is in some trouble. The best that I could come up with is rook ac8. Queen e2. There's also the move knight e5, amazingly. It's super complicated. Rook c2, bishop c2 is a draw with a perpetual, so I cannot take it. However, black can take here, recaptures. It's funny. Now queen b6 is the only move, and queen d3. Yeah, and what is black playing now? It's quite amazing. What you should do is probably this move, rook c d8, after which white has the amazing reply. At first you think white is losing, yeah? But white can take on d8, which is quite remarkable. If black now recaptures, look at this. It's completely forced. And at the end, white has, what is this, 3 extra pawns in the bishop's ending. It's really worthwhile to see that again. Takes on d8, yeah. No, white is really is down everything, but it's completely forced. Check, 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 and it's basically made now. He needs to give everything back to get a lost endgame. So let's return. The fun thing is, after takes on d8, black can go here and draw with bishop g2, of course. This is a perpetual. Very crazy lines, but they needed to calculate this in the game. So this is a draw. White, however, after rook c8 also can try to play for a win with queen e2. And this is in fact dangerous for black. Let's say black takes it, just for argument's sake. There are other moves, but let's say he takes it. Then something like this could have easily happened. Bishop b1 check and queen here to attack on h8. And this is dangerous for black, no doubt about it. Here's a sample line. Attacks. Yeah, and white will win another pawn. Let's say something like this. And white is the only one playing for a win here. He's good. He's got good chances. I think you can, at least can do something like this. And you have 4 pawns for the piece, and the king is still insecure. Just one line. It's very deep also. But yeah, this is what could have happened after rook h5. Amongst others, there are other lines. I analyzed some others, but it's really white has got good chances. He played e4, however, and this is bad, really bad. Kramnik now plays rook c8. He did calculate this the upcoming sequence and correctly judged that he's the only one with winning chances after that, but he had a much stronger move, and this is queen to f4. This seems to win outright, really immediately. The idea is that black now just threatens to take the bishop, as simple as that, as the e5 check response is then answered with bishop e4. Just a stupid move to illustrate. Let's say rook f1, just for example. Yeah, here black can even take d4. No. But just to show it, this is what black is about to do. If you ignore the bishop, you need to really go, oops, queen f4. You need to go rook here. Everything else doesn't make much sense. And here black has got more than one good move, but I think the cleanest one is g6 even. Attacking the rook. It doesn't have any square. Check. King here. Bishop h7, there's nothing else for a tempo. Rook h8 and white resigns. As simple as that. The h7 bishop is trapped, and white has no move really. This thing is gone on h7. So this was relatively easy. I think Kramnik beforehand had planned the move rook c8 and calculated all this to the end game that comes up in the game, but it's probably not judged correctly. So let's see what happened. e5 takes e5. This was his idea. Knight takes was necessary. Rook takes c5, And yeah, you always have to remember that this bishop is a liability. White cannot simply go here as the bishop falls. Rook d7, knight c6 is an important point. This is why white has to give this check first, then take here. And now black has the funny resource bishop e4. Really an attractive move. This is what Kramnik probably had calculated all along with rook c8 and even before that. And now it is completely forcing what happens. White takes on d6, takes the queen. All this was a forced sequence. And here mate is threatened. h4, a5, and now Aronian played c6, which is a mistake. He, I think, would have had pretty decent drawing chances if he would play some other move. The problem is that this is just exposing the pawn. Black now could have played rook c8, and this would probably lead to, in comparison, relatively easy win, because black is intending to do something like this, or this, go all the way back to e8 to attack the pawn. Of course, bishop g6 you need to prepare. It's still controlled by the rook. And white cannot really prevent this. He can go here, but black can even try something like this and get the pawn. White still has got, before he played this, still had got hopes for a draw based on the fact that the material is somewhat reduced already. And of course, rook and bishop against rook is a draw. So you need to get rid of all the pawns and you draw. So white must try to exchange his 3 pawns on the queen side against the 2 pawns here, and his 2 pawns on the king side against the single pawn. So there are 2 one-pawn majorities. Another drawing idea, of course, is the rook exchange, and then exchanging b pawn and g pawn, so that the a pawn is the one that is left at the end and you've got the wrong color for the bishop. So this is what happened. Kramnik didn't go rook c8 and allowed this maneuver. Yeah, no choice. Black needs to exchange. And really amazingly, this endgame seems to be a draw. It's really funny. Because of, as mentioned, this motif with the wrong colored, the wrong combination of bishop and pawn. I think for a couple of moves they played normal logical moves. Yeah, this is all very, very logical. White pushed the pawns here as he needs to exchange those 2 against g7, and then he needs to come up with the king and get the b pawn. Yeah, bishop retreated. Yeah, and here Aronian played in a really strange manner. The easiest now is just go king d4. King c7, king c5. Now a very easy draw is bishop to c4 as h6, h7 picks up the b pawn, and then you only need to go all the way to a1 and it's a draw. It's the wrong bishop or the wrong pawn, whatever you want to call it. The combination is just a draw. So what black needs to do here is to go over to the king side. King d7, h6. Now g6, the only try for a win. Otherwise we get the same as before. King b5, king e6, king here, 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 here. Zack. c5, a5. And it's a draw. Queen and minor piece against queen is really useless. Queen and knight against queen has got some slight practical chances, but simply because the knight is a tricky piece. But queen bishop against queen is useless. Here white even has a pawn. So this would have been really easy and straightforward, and I'm absolutely puzzled why he didn't do that. It's so simple. You just need to count it. I mean, I think really every 17 or 1800 player is able to do that. I don't know what he was thinking. What he played was okay. I mean, it's still a draw, but I'm not quite sure why first queen and not do this straightforward line. This was played. So here, if white goes h6, black of course needs to play g6 to get anything going. King b5, king g5, and a4. Takes c4. This is exactly the same position as before. Funny enough, it's exactly the same, just like with 45 here, instead of queening with king to d4. Just the same, and a draw, of course. But in this position, Aronian shocked everyone by playing the move g6. What's the difference? King g5, king b5, takes. And now black's king is simply one square ahead compared to the line before, and the king now helps out. Look, here it is. This is the problem. The king is helping, and white simply cannot draw this anymore. g5 is the last important point. If black would go here, then there's king d6 and a draw. He will get the pawn. It's unavoidable. The last trick, but Kramnik of course was cautious, and he pushed the g-pawn simply. Yeah, and here Aronian resigned the game. So really a kind of titanic struggle, which really should have ended in a draw, but it's been a long tournament, and nerves. If you look at the webcam, look at the two players. They were completely wasted after the game. They were completely shattered, and I mean it's an enormous performance that they need to do there in the tournament. They're in round 12. There have been very little games without any play. I mean, they really fought hard, and it was a really complicated game. Look at the middle game around this year. This was very, very complicated, and therefore it's understandable that there are some mistakes that are being made. But it's simply, chess on this level is a matter of nerves and getting and showing your best under those big pressure situations. And Aronian really failed here on more than one occasion, where he first could have gotten probably an advantage with rook h5, and then he failed to secure the draw here, which still, remember, Carlsen lost. Yeah, they didn't knew that, of course, in beforehand that he would lose. But just imagine this game would have ended in a draw. Then Aronian would have been just half a point behind Carlsen, and Kramnik would have tied with Carlsen. So it's crazy. Just a draw, and it's wide open. Then three players can win this, and with the loss, he spoiled everything. Yeah. Okay, what's the standing now? The standings is that maybe I can I let's just for a second I'll get the table here just to make it clear. Okay, this is German language, but you can see the table here. So Kramnik is now leading with 8 points, ahead of Carlsen 7.5, Aronian 6.5. So Aronian is out of it. Yeah, he can mathematically he can still win it, but it's close to impossible. So it's between Kramnik and Carlsen. And Kramnik is now half a point ahead. He really this was an amazing round. What a turnaround. So 2 games to go, and I'm not quite sure if they've got the pairings on here. Yeah, they got the pairings. Here are the last 2 rounds. Okay, it's German language, but you see anyway. Carlsen playing Rajabov with black, while Kramnik plays Gelfand as white. So Gelfand is tough to beat. It's not at all easy for Kramnik. And Carlsen with black against Rajabov. Rajabov is not in great shape, we know. So important, very important round. And final round, Carlsen's got white against Swidler, and Kramnik black against the completely unpredictable Ivanchuk, who can do anything. So I say this is still rather open, this race. It really depends on Carlsen's, I guess, ability to pull himself together for the last 2 rounds and really show his best. Yeah, this was really a crap game. Yeah, must be honest. He was basically saying the same, so I'm not being too candid here. He played really bad against Ivanchuk and badly. So he needs to pull himself together and really show if he's the material for the World Championship. It's simple as that. You need to have the nerves in those essential games, those 1 or 2 games you need to win to really get the best out of you and win. He can do it in tournaments. He has done it many times, winning the last 2 games or something to sort of sometimes steal the tournament from someone else in a way, not meant in a bad way, but so like the other person certainly thought they have it now, and then he was still able to do something. So I still think it's open. One important thing is the tie breaks. If they have the same score at the end of the tournament, then the first tiebreak would be games against each other. But Kramnik and Carlsen played 2 draws, so this is even. Then after this, the number of wins counts. You can always argue about. I don't think this is a particularly great tiebreak, but okay, the number of wins counts, and this would actually favor Carlsen if he wins. So let's say one scenario: Carlsen wins one of those 2 games, and Kramnik plays 2 draws. Carlsen is the challenger. Yeah, it's that easy. Because he lost 1 game, so won 1 game more, and has got more wins. This tiebreak, the most number of wins, also means the player with the bigger number of losses is also ahead. This is the kind of fun thing about this tiebreak. So +1 for Carlsen in the 2 games and 2 draws for Kramnik means that that Carlsen wins this. But it's possible, certainly possible, that Carlsen needs to win both games. I cannot imagine Kramnik winning both games, to be honest, but you never know. He already has got 4.5 out of 5 in this second turn, amazingly. So one thing is clear: Carlsen needs to win against Rajabov. He certainly cannot accept some drawish line and just play for a draw. And Rajabov, I don't know. He's maybe the kind of person who tries to play very solidly to provoke him. I mean, I would probably do the same. I mean, I would lose. Yeah, I'm not saying I would have some chance against Magnus, but I would certainly, in this position, advise Rajabov to play something very solid and try to provoke Carlsen into to do something crazy, which probably doesn't work out. You never know. These are 2 very exciting, interesting final rounds, and we're certainly in for some very thrilling games. Okay, thanks for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. Today, Saturday, is a rest day. So Sunday and Monday are the 2 crucial days here to to see who is challenging Arnold. Thanks for watching. I'll be back on Sunday evening. Thanks and bye.